housekeeping issues. I'd like to remind members that under the Council's remote meeting procedures, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for archive purposes. Can I also ask all members, except Cabinet members and group leaders, that your mics and cameras are turned off until you're invited by me to speak. Should you wish to speak, would you please indicate by raising the hand function on Teams. If this function ceases to work during the meeting, please indicate in the chat facility that you wish to speak. If attending by telephone, please indicate verbally when appropriate if you wish to speak. With regard to voting on recommendations, if there is no dissent on a recommendation, I will accept the silence as an agreement. Should, however, a vote be required, it is my intention that all members be asked individually for their vote. If during the meeting you have any technical difficulties, please let the Democratic Services Officer know as soon as possible. Thank you. Right, we will start. Do we have any apologies for absence, please? Councillor Carroll.
Councillor Andrew R.T. Davis.
Thank you. Any other apologies? No.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I believe Rob Crowley, Councillor Crowley, may have just put his apologies in as well, if I may add that.
Thank you very much.
Just been taken to hospital.
Right, we'll carry on then, please. Can we have the vote call and declarations of interest?
Thank you, Mayor. If we start with Councillor Julie Aviat, please.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Vincent Bailey.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Rhiannon Birch.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Jonathan Bird.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Bronwyn Brooks.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Liz Burnett.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor George Carroll.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Christine Cave. Councillor Cave.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Janice Charles.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Millie Collins.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Jeff Cox.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Pamela Drake.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Vince Driscoll. Councillor Driscoll. Okay, Councillor Stewart Edwards.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ben Gray.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Owen Griffiths. Councillor Griffiths with us. Okay, Councillor Stephen Griffiths.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Tony Hampton. Councillor Sally Hanks.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Nick Hodges.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Hunter Jarvie.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Gwyn John.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Ian Johnson.
And presennol a dim byd that gan.
Councillor Gordon Kemp.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Peter King.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Kevin Marnie.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Catherine McCaffer.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Anne Moore.
Say it again.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Neil Moore.
Apologies for that, I had the mic off. Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Michael Morgan.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Jane Norman.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Rachel Nugent Finn.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Andrew Parker.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Bob Penrose.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Sandra Perks.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Andrew Robertson.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Leighton Rowlands.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ruba Sivanianam.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor John Thomas. Councillor John Thomas. Councillor Neil Thomas.
Nothing to declare.
Councillor Steffan William. Councillor
Presennol
William.
a dim byd i'w ddatgan. Presennol a dim byd i'w ddatgan.
Diolch, thank you. Councillor Margaret Wilkinson.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Eddie Williams.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Mark Wilson.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Margarita Wright. Councillor Wright. I'm just going to go back. Councillor Driscoll has indicated that he is present through the chat bar. Councillor Owen Griffiths, please. Councillor Tony Hampton. Councillor John Thomas.
Rob, in terms of John Thomas, he's just messaged me to say he's struggling to get in on his phone, so to give his apologies if he's not able to join.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Wright. Okay, Mayor, that concludes the roll call.
Thank you very much. We've gone to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes held on the 7th of March.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I formally move the minutes?
And can I formally second, Mayor?
Thank you very much. Seem to be no comments, so we will take that as accepted. Thank you. We move on to item 4, to receive announcements from the Mayor, Leader and members of the Cabinet, etc. I have a few announcements to make. Since our last meeting, I've managed to attend a few functions, the Mayor of Cowbridge Civic Service, the High School Showcase event in St David's Hall, the Vale Glamorgan Brass Band, which was a UK fundraiser, the inauguration of the new appointed High Sheriff of South Glamorgan, Friends and Neighbours afternoon Easter event in Barry, the Barry Raffa Drumhead dedication event at the Cemetery Approach, and I've hosted the Mayor's Charity Coffee Morning, where I met with people who had charities and organisations who had received grants from the Mayor's Fund. And on the 3rd of May, I'm hoping to attend HMS Cambria Community Engagement. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank members that are standing down from their role as councillors for the years of representing the residents of the Vale of Glamorgan, and to wish you all in your retirement. In particular, I'd like to send my own personal thanks to our leader, Councillor Neil Moore, OBE, who is retiring after over 30 years' service to the residents of the Vale of Glamorgan. His dedication to the role has seen him successfully steer this council through the most difficult times we've ever experienced, ensuring we not only survived the emergency, but also continued to provide the excellent service to the residents. Thank you, Neil. You'll be sorely missed. Finally, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Ukraine, and hope there'll soon be an end to the atrocities that we are witnessing on the media. A few people have also asked to make announcements now, so I could take them in order, please. Anybody who wish to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I could.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to say a few words, obviously. As you know, I'm not seeking re-election, so this is the last time that I have an opportunity to address this council, and indeed the last time I'll do so as a council leader. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those who supported my appointment as leader at this turbulent time. Once again, it's been an honour to do so, albeit when I accepted, little did I know that COVID-19 would hit. Regrettably, COVID is still with us, despite the majority of restrictions being eased. At the time, it was clear that we had a job of work to do, and it was not going to be an easy task, particularly having to deal with COVID and continuing austerity. Despite the barriers, I know we did a good job, and I'm proud that this council is still the best performing council in Wales. I appreciate the unstinting support from everyone, but I really have to thank the members of the Cabinet who have been superb to work with during the last 3 years. They have worked tirelessly for the residents of the Vale Glamorgan, and I sincerely thank them for their patience and perseverance. I'd particularly like to thank Councillor Liz Burnett, my outstanding deputy leader, without whom I could not have been able to carry out my role. Liz was always there to assist me through some very difficult periods. So a special thank you from me to you, Liz. I give my utmost thanks to our senior leadership team of officers, particularly the Chief Executive, with whom I spent hour after hour, day after day with over the last 2 years. Virtually, I may emphasize, so no rule breaking here. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. Clearly, thanks have to go to the incredible staff across the council who carried out the work in such difficult times. Many have worked remotely, as many continue to do so. However, there are a multitude who have continued the face-to-face work in the areas such as social care, refuse and recycling, the PPE team, finance, and the track and tracers, just to name but a few. They're a credit to this organisation, and I salute you all, so thank you very much. I bow out, having represented Carrick for 33 years, which has been an absolute pleasure to do so, albeit frustrating at times. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the electorate for having their trust in me for all those years. There is, of course, another councillor who has been representing Cardiff for 34 years. I refer, of course, to Councillor Anne Moore, who has been my long-suffering partner both in politics and life. I owe Anne an eternal gratitude for supporting me and being my rock over the years. Anne is not seeking re-election either, but she's asked me to pass on her good wishes to everyone, but particularly to the officers that she's worked with over the years, especially when she was chair of E&E as it was then. I'd also like to wish others who are retiring, by my reckoning there are about 10 of us, a long and healthy retirement from politics. I'd also like to congratulate all sitting councillors who are once again putting their heads above the parapet and standing for office, and I wish them well with their endeavours. Clearly, no matter what happens, the next council will be very different, and I wish all those elected luck, as the pressures on everyone will be immense. I consider local government to be the backbone of our community, and running it is not a simple task, particularly with so many scrutiny from those who have not been prepared to do what you have done and stand for election. Keyboard warriors and social media pundits should remember the councillors and officers do what is considered to be right in difficult circumstances, within the law and the regulations that we have to follow. Not forgetting that we do so for the good of the many and not the few. It's not easy to protect council services amid government cuts to budgets, but difficult decisions will need to be taken to ensure Vale residents get the best possible services, especially for the vulnerable members in our society who rely on our services. Mayor, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I wish you all the best of luck for the future, no matter what it brings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader, very much. Councillor Carroll, I think you were next in line to speak.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I would like to join the leader in thanking and paying tribute to all of those members of the authority who are not standing for re-election. I do believe that everybody who does this does so for the right reasons. It's for public service, and if you're not seeking the election, I wish you the very best for the future. I would like to give a special mention to the leader. He has served the Vale for over 3 decades. He's always done what he has believed to be right, and while inevitably we've disagreed on issues from time to time, I'd like to pay tribute to him for his service and wish him and Anne a very happy retirement.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, where to start really in such a tumultuous 3 years? 10 months in and straight into a pandemic, schools that stepped up and turned into childcare hubs while at the same time providing online learning, officers repurposed into new roles and repurposed yet again into others as situations changed, thousands of people fed, supported and cared for, many millions of pounds distributed to support local businesses. Our countryside and resort teams stepped up so that people could enjoy the outdoors safely, and right in the middle of it, officers worked across teams to save the Pier Pavilion, while others launched Big Fresh, the social enterprise that's invested its surpluses back into the Vale schools and their children. And through that time, services still ran, schools were still built, and new ways of working were found as our schools changed to a new way of learning. And meetings, yes, there were thousands of meetings, from the crack of dawn right through to late at night. But at least the midnight WhatsApp messages have reduced. Recognition, however, must go to two people who guided this council through those times. The leader and the chief executive. They didn't falter and they didn't fail this council, not once. Neil's commitment to this council and to the people of the Vale has been absolute. As he steps down, he leaves a void that will be near impossible to fill. But he and Anne take with them our deepest gratitude and best wishes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very well, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Gwynne-John, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, tonight we see goodbye to 10 of our councillors, but particularly I wish them all the very best in the future in their retirement, but particularly to Neil and Anne, who have been absolutely fantastic for the number of years that they've served this authority. Over 30 years is quite exceptional. I wish to thank Neil for all the help and advice he has given me over the past 23 years that I've been a councillor, and it has been a pleasure and a privilege to work with him, especially when we worked in coalition. This council is losing an exceptional servant with the knowledge he has accumulated in his long service. 101st Independent councillors all wish you and Anne a very happy retirement. It will be a huge void to fill, but certainly, Neil, you worked very hard throughout all these years, and I wish you both a very well-earned retirement and our very best wishes from 101st Independents.
Thank you very much, Councillor John. Councillor Wilson.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Can I also pay tribute to Neil and Anne in particular? They have worked tirelessly for this council over the years. They have always thought of themselves before anyone, thought of the administration before anything else, and that includes their personal life as well. And that's an important point to point out to people. You know, as chair of a scrutiny committee for quite a bit of the time, in and out of it because of changes of administration, I really feel very deeply about the efforts and the advice that Neil has given me over a number of years. And I've always taken on board, not always agreed, but most of the time agreed upon, you know, his views, because his views have meant an awful lot to me and how hard he has worked for this council. Okay, sometimes with little thanks. And I really feel that that is so important that
Thank you for your support.
For the betterment of the people of the Vale of Glamorgan. And I wish you well, Anne and Neil, in your retirement. Well, I know that
you got chips, have you?
In politics of everything. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. And Councillor King.
Thanks ever so much, Madam Chair, colleagues. I'd like to echo the tributes already paid to Neil and others. In comparison, my service has been very modest, but please indulge me for a couple of moments while I thank, first of all, the voters of the Cornerswell Ward for giving me 2 terms of office. But I have to say it has been an absolute honour for me to work for the people across the whole of the Vale over the past 10 years, 5 as cabinet member. I'm extremely proud of this council, one of the best in Wales. But I can't depart without blowing a trumpet for my own portfolio and saying a particular thanks for the work with recycling. We pipped to second position by one of the council, but otherwise absolutely fantastic recycling figures. And while that is undeniably due to the efforts of officers and operatives and our management and arrangement, it is substantially due to the fantastic effort from residents, for whom I am forever grateful and really say thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. And the last one I see indicated is Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As this is the final council of this term, I'd like, as the leader of the Plaid Cymru group, to pay tribute to the work of all of the staff and councillors across the last 5 years, irrespective of their party political position. Everybody, I believe, has done the best that they can in representing the electorate that they were elected to represent back in 2017. I would like to pay particular tribute, of course, to the leader for the work that he's put in, and particularly so during the years of the pandemic that we've had. Naturally, we've disagreed on some issues, agreed on others. That's the same relationship I think I've had with councillors across the authority, and also particularly to Councillor King for his willingness to answer and field questions from me over the years in his role as in the cabinet there. There's another one for you tonight, Peter. I'd also like to pay tribute to my ward member, fellow ward member, Councillor Owen Griffiths, who's standing down tonight. Owen was obviously elected as a member of the Labour Party in 2017. Myself, for Plaid Cymru. Very few of us, I think, have a split ward where there are representatives of two parties, and it can be difficult. But Owen and I had some very important conversations, particularly around issues on Black Lives Matter. I'd like to thank him for his work, and I wish him and everyone else who's leaving the council a happy political retirement. Obviously, for many of us, we'll be standing next week in the election, and I wish everyone a happy campaign, if not always success. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. And I think our director wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I feel I do need to come in at this point, if you will allow me to. Can I start by just saying, as this is the end of term, so to speak, can I thank all councillors who have put themselves forward and given their service over the last 5 years. Thanks specifically to those who are retiring and not seeking re-election. May you all have a long and healthy retirement and a happy retirement. My name has been mentioned in dispatches, but I really do feel that I should pay tribute to my senior leadership team colleagues who have been unstinting in their support throughout the last 2.5, 3 years in particular, which has been one of the most challenging times I have ever experienced in local government in my career. It's been challenging, difficult, but it's also been hugely rewarding to see how this council has responded to that. I have to thank all the staff as well from across the organisation, across all sites, from our social services department, neighbourhood services, from our schools, education department, from our resources colleagues, all directorates, all teams. They have never faltered in the way they have responded to the last 2.5 years. Everybody has worked in a very different way, never questioned it, never grumbled, just got on with it. And last but not least, I really should pay tribute to the leader as well for his service during that challenging time. He is absolutely right when he says that we have worked together for several hours over every day of the week at the early stage of the pandemic into the evening. And thank you to him for his leadership of the organisation at a very, very difficult time, and he has without doubt earned his retirement. Very much so. So thank you for allowing that, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob. All right, no one else has indicated they wish to speak. to proceed with the agenda. Item number 5, report from the Chief Exec. I think that's leader to take.
I'm going to be dealing with this, and before I do, can I just thank everybody for their very kind words.
Mayor, can I come in? I'm going to leave at this point, if I may.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the fact that the Chief Executive will be leaving this meeting for this particular item because it does relate to him, and he feels that it's right and proper that he should leave. It is in fact just a housekeeping report more than anything else, as indeed are many of the reports that we have here tonight, to be honest. This one is in relation to, is really to reform the Council of the Local Government and Election Wales Act, consequential amendments and transition provisions in relation to chief executives and the regulations which go before it, and the full legal implications for which are set out elsewhere in the report. Basically what it is, on the coming into force of the order, Section 54 of the Local Government and Election Wales Act, the regulations take effect so as to replace the current requirements to designate as a head of paid service under the Local Government and Housing Act 1989 immediately before the 5th of May 2020, and that person be treated as the chief executive under Section 54 of the Act. Quite simply, what it simply says, really, excuse me, is that if you have a head of paid service in post before the 5th of May, as of the 5th of May, they automatically become a chief executive. So basically, that is currently where we are. Just for the clarity, because I know people have made comments previously, there are no financial implications as part of this redesignation. It is a legal requirement, and that it does not require any further contractual steps to be taken. So quite simply, Mayor, can I move that the council notes the introduction of the Local Government Elections Act 2021 consequential amendments and transitional provisions, chief executive regulations, and in essence redesignates the chief executive as he stands at the moment as head of paid service to the chief executive with effect from the 5th of May. If I could formally move that, I think it's, as I said, it's housekeeping, but it needs to be done.
And if I could formally second, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item is item, if I can get it right, 6A.
Item 6, yeah, 6A. I understand Councillor Williams is going to take this.
Indeed.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is a reference from the Cabinet meeting, reference the replacement LDP consultation sponsors. It's very much, it's been sent out about timescales for the delivery of the LDP change, and also consultation on the draft report. There were 53 sponsors, and they've been taken into consideration, and members have been able to look at the report and see the changes made to those as a result of those sponsors. And basically tonight, it's for a council decision, so it's I'm taking it that all members have been able to read it, and the resolutions are in the main report, and they're on this reference here that the appendices A and B left to the report were considered and brought to the council tonight, and the proposed changes were set out in Appendix C of the report, and these are to be endorsed and referred to the council tonight, along with the draft delivery agreement and draft review report. There are some other points on the reference there which all members can see. I just move that to be the Mayor.
Mayor, can I formally second? This is part of the Glamorgan replacement development plan. It is a process. There is a timetable in place. We have been out to consultation. What has to happen in this case is that the first stage was a drafted delivery agreement. It does set out the findings of the public consultation. Then we have to have the responses of the review. As Councillor Williams says, there were 52 or 53 comments, and again, there's the response to the draft review, And again, in relation to the draft review, 17 respondents provided comments, and they're attached at Appendix A. Basically, this is just we have to send this into the Welsh Government as part of the timetable. Once it's adopted by Welsh Government, then it will come back to us for further submission. So this is really submission to Welsh Government for them to review our review, for want of a better word. So can I formally second?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Johnson, you wish to quick comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Williams and Councillor Moore for the introduction to this. As has been mentioned, there 53 responses to the draft delivery agreement, part of the consultation. Most of those didn't lead to any particular changes within the agreement. There's a number of changes, most of which are regarding housekeeping on the delay of the introduction of TAN 15, which is regarding flooding, and also on the changing circumstances with the planning application at Model Farm. I just wish here to reiterate some of the comments I made at the Environment and Economy Environmental Regeneration Scrutiny Committee when this came there, which was regarding the timeline, and it's relevant in the context of the elections next week, because this is the timeline for the adoption of the RLDP, the Renewed Local Development Plan, is one which means that it will be agreed by the councillors who are elected at the end of next week. So the council elected next week will be part of, will be the people making the decision. There won't be a further opportunity for the public to directly elect people to make those decisions. It will be done within the next 5 years. And I say that in the context of elections that were held in 2012 and in 2017 that focused very heavily on the local development plan. So I think it's important that people understand that when they elect people next week, those will be the people who'll be piloting this RLDP through the system. I've made that point that this is the last democratic opportunity. There won't be a chance for people to vote again on this. These will be the people. I said this back in October. That's a quirk, perhaps a quirk of the timeline that we've been dealt with, but that is how it's happening. In that context, because obviously, like many others, I face election next week. I may or may not be in this chamber, this virtual chamber, to discuss these issues when they come through. I would just like to, to put on record, my concerns regarding the infrastructure and how that is, an important part of the RLDP as it goes through, with particular reference to issues regarding flooding, which have been plaguing the Vale in recent years as a result of climate change, and particular reference to sewage and the ability of the Cogmore's wastewater to deal with the issues as they arise. I may or may not be here to deal with the minutiae of this as it goes through the process in the next 3.5 years. But on behalf of myself and my group, I would like to flag those issues up now, because that is the infrastructure is a highly important part of the RLDP as it goes forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Robson, I think you had indicated you wish to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to iterate what Councillor Johnson has just said. I have serious concerns about the democratic process in a way, insofar as there are going to be decisions being made which people aren't actually going to be able to vote on. As Councillor Johnson said, this is possibly down to the timeline of the elections and everything, but after what I can only call debacle over the last LDP, there are serious concerns about people's ability to vote on, the electorate, not ours, the electorate's ability to vote on these issues. I'm concerned that many things may change over the next 5 years without people having a chance to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. No one else has indicated they wish to speak.
Madam Mayor, can I just
back to the leader?
Could I just clear something up? Because I think maybe people have in some respects got the wrong end of the stick, because this is the beginning of the process, and the bits about in terms of things like flooding and in terms of infrastructure, that will always come back to us. Well, you won't come back to me, but it will come back to council for consideration, and before you finally ratify the new local development plan. And I think there will be a chance for people to deal with some of this, but at a much later stage. As Councillor Johnson said, it will be down to some of those ones who will come after us, or after myself anyway. So I think there will be a process, and I don't know whether or not, if you need clarification, I'm sure that the director is here and could probably give some clarification on it. I think it would probably be advantageous for the director to give some advice if council agrees.
Thank you very much.
Could
Councillor
I
Robson,
mention? Thank you, Lady Mayoress. I take on board what Councillor Moore said, what the leaders said, but surely there will be decisions made in the next 5 years, actual decisions made by whoever becomes the next administration, which the people of the Vale of Glamorgan will not be able to respond to at the polls. And I think it's very important that serious decisions which have been made by the council should be laid out at a time when people have an opportunity to vote on them as the electorate. Thank you.
Well, Madam Mayor, with due respect, this isn't a political argument. This is a statutory process which we have to go through, and to say people can vote on it is, I think, electioneering at its worst. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Robson, can you please lower the handout indicated on your screen?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. I wasn't being political. I'm being pro-democracy.
Right, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I'd just like to finish off that, as leader and the reports indicate, this is the start of the process to indicate that we've already taken consultation on the actual draft review report itself and the strategy and all the other aspects of it. And the stages have been outlined in the delivery agreement, which show that those stages and all those aspects of the LDP will go to consultation. So residents, the Vale of Glamorgan will actually be able to contribute to that. So I probably just want to leave it at that. And there's no value, I don't think, in changing what we've got. I think we've had the consultation with residents. They've had a chance to look at draft review report and delivery agreement, and we've taken account of those comments, and they're in the reports that have been put through. So the rest of it, all the other consultations, will look at the details of all the various aspects of the LDP, and that's all set out in the timeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Marnie, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Am I the only person who the sound is just cutting out? Half of you people giving you glorious backslapping comments to each other and all the other discussions we're having here. We didn't hear half of it. Am I the only one, or is this yet another IT disaster by the Vale of Glamorgan IT department? Because quite frankly, I think this meeting should be abandoned if this can't be sorted out. We can't hear half of what's going on.
Well, I've managed to hear everything that's been going on, Councillor Marnie. Has anybody else had any problems? No, I don't see any indication from anywhere else, Councillor Marnie.
Sorry, what did you say there, Chair? Madam Mayor, what did you say? I didn't quite hear you.
Kevin Marnie, Councillor Marnie, you're muted.
Yes, I'm back on now, yeah.
Yeah,
so we're saying it's just, presumably just my equipment then, is it?
By the sound of it, yes. No. Nobody else has indicated they have any problems.
Okay then, we'll have to put it down to that then in that case.
Thank you.
Maybe people can send me transcripts of their glowing comments of self-described best council in Wales at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Marnie. Can we move
on? Mayor, sorry, you're muted at the moment.
Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor, I think we need to either take a vote or everybody accept. There was a recommendation and a second in, so I think we need to move.
Yes, thank you.
As long as everybody accepts that, unless anybody wants to vote.
I can't see any indications, Leader.
I'd vote against it, if I may, please.
I'd abstain.
Leader, do you wish to take a recorded vote, or do you wish to just record one abstention and one against?
I don't see the point. It's a process. Anyway, if that's the case, Madam Mayor, if that's agreed that it was sent to Welsh Government, can I move to item 6B, please?
Thank you. We'll carry on.
Thank you very much. This is an item which has been to the Cabinet this afternoon. It's in relation to the draft multi-location policy briefing note. It is housekeeping in some respects, but I will go through it. As of the 1st of May 2021, Section 47 of the Local Government Election Wales Act 2021 required all local authorities to make and publish arrangements for the purpose of ensuring that meetings are able to be held by means of any equipment or other facility to facilitate members who are not in the same place at the same place to attend meetings, indeed, as we are doing now. As you're aware, under the use of the emergency powers, a procedure for the remote attendance was previously agreed and is being used tonight. Under Section 46 of the Act, from the 5th of May, and again it's housekeeping in some respects, Principal Council meetings must make and publish arrangements for the purpose of ensuring meetings are broadcast electronically, so the persons not in attendance at a meeting can be seen and hear proceedings. That's covered in Section 1.6 of the report. Having regard to the above, and in light of the interim statutory guidance on multi-location meetings being issued in August 21, a draft local policy is attached to Appendix A to the report. That has been prepared for consideration to comply with the legislation. The policy provides guidance to elected members of the public and stakeholders on how Council will conduct the provision of multi-location meetings. Paragraphs 217 and 18 in the report details the policy and advises which meeting platforms will be used for the broadcasting of meetings going forward from the 5th of May. So the recommendations to Council is that the Council notes that the Council's current remote attendance and meetings procedure within the Council's constitution has been reviewed in light of the provisions of Section 46 and 47 of the Local Government Election Wales Act 2021 and the Welsh Government's interim guidance on multi-location meetings published in August 2021. Secondly, that the Council endorses and approves the report presented to Cabinet earlier today and reviewed tonight, and approves the draft multi-location meeting policy, which was attached to Appendix A to the report, along with the draft multi-location meetings policy, and that they be included in the Council's constitution. The review of the policy be undertaken upon review of any further statutory guidance from Welsh Government or any other further accessibility requirements, and also the Council's public participation obligations. There's a slight amendment to recommendation 4, and I'll tell you what that will be in a second. And it would be that paragraph 6.7 in the draft multi-location policy at Appendix A to the report be amended to read: a participant at a meeting as defined in paragraph 6.1 above wishes to speak in Welsh, and adding this, or a person wishing to use the Welsh language translation service at a meeting. So in other words, we're adding in or person wishing to use the Welsh language translation service at a meeting is required to contact Democratic Services at least 72 hours before the meeting. The reason for that is in regard to the Council's language standard number 33. Therefore, basically, that the amendment is in order to comply with all future agenda. Therefore, in order to comply with all the future agendas, we'll have a sentence advising people to contact the Council's democratic officer, officers should say, at least 72 hours before the meeting. So if they wish to use the Welsh language facility at the meeting, basically it's just to give people an absolute time to use it. The addition is because anybody wishing to use Welsh language translation service at a meeting. I think Councillor Johnson is looking a bit perplexed. This is something which has come forward. It's something which has been drafted It's gone out to the officers to consider, and I've just recommended in the recommendations that this draft multi-location policy be accepted, albeit then there is an opportunity for it to be revised at any time, particularly in terms of things like policies which any further guidance come from Welsh Government or any other requirements of the council or its public participation obligations. Can I formally move that we accept the policy with that extra bit in there, which therefore does make sure that all future agendas will have that statement so that the democratic services are aware of any requirements in the future.
And formally second, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Johnson, do you wish to comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Leader. Yes, sorry, it's just regarding that change to 6.7. Perhaps it's just the rapidity, the speed at which that was explained, but I think it would be helpful to to have a review of that at some point in the year, just to understand what the implications of that are, because that sounded to me like somebody who wants. I was a bit what was confusing me there, and I don't know if you can just unpack this for me. Was that it sounded to me like somebody who wanted to receive a Welsh language translation would have to ask 72 hours in advance, and where I'm confused there is that there's obviously that if you're asking somebody to speak, if they want to speak in Welsh 3 days before the meeting, well, somebody who doesn't know that there's going to be a Welsh speaker won't be getting that translation because it'll be 3 days before that. That's where I'm kind of trying to understand what this is trying to achieve.
It's more to do with the fact that the majority of our meetings are held in the English language, but there is a provision that even that Welsh can be used. If there's a need for a translation, then we need to have that in place. As I understand it, within the policy itself, there is an agreement that we have so many hours of translation facilities available. This is my understanding anyway. Perhaps the officers who wrote the report can help. But it's my understanding is that if anybody wishes to have that translation service in particular, then they inform the officers in advance, because it might not be available at every meeting. That's the issue, I think, is that it may not be available for every meeting, because otherwise I think there's a contract for 120 hours or something like that, I think, if I recall, from reading this ages ago. And that being the case, the officers need some advance notice should they require the translation service for that particular meeting. Does that make sense? Doesn't obviously by your face.
Thank you, Leader. The monitoring officer wishes to come in. Perhaps she has some clarification on this.
It was just to reiterate the last remark of the leader, that it's to provide notice to the officers to enable the Welsh translation facility to be made available, so that we'd have a translator in attendance at the meeting. So it's not to provide a translation for that meeting, but to make available the arrangements to have a translator in attendance. Hopefully that assists, but certainly I take on board the comment from Councillor Johnson about reviewing how this works in practice, so we can certainly take that on board.
If I may, Mayor, I mean, because I don't want this is a discussion about meeting places rather than translation, but obviously the need for translation is for people, interpretations of people who can't speak Welsh, not those of us who can, and make a choice about which language to speak here. So it's an issue for another day, another forum. Thank you.
Okay, Ian, I take on board the point. This is very new. This is something which we've not done before. This is a way forward, but I take the point, and it's an English translation from Welsh is probably what it should be saying, rather than the other way around. So I take your point. I hadn't thought about it that way myself. But I think this is basically what we're asking is that this briefing be agreed so that we can move forward, or in fact the next council can move forward to at least meet the legal requirements.
Thank you, Leader.
Good, thank you. Okay, everybody's happy with that or content, but clearly there does need to be a review. Then the next item, Mayor, is a draft model constitution guide, and again this went to Cabinet this afternoon. Again, it's in relation to Section 45 of the Local Government and Election Wales Act, and that again places duties on principal councils to publish a guide to the Constitution. That is, and that both the council's constitution and the guide are published electronically. In other words, this is a layman's guide to the Constitution, which is sometimes convoluted, let's put it that way, and sometimes legal speak. So the council's constitution, as we know, has been available electronically for some time. However, from the 5th of May, a guide which explains in ordinary language the Constitution itself must be prepared and published electronically as well. As a matter of interest, the Brown Jacobsons or solicitors were commissioned by the All Wales Monitoring Officers Group to prepare a draft model constitution and a draft model constitution guide. At the last meeting of full council on the 7th of March, a number of amendments to this council's constitution relating to the provisions in the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021 were required to be placed on the agenda and to be in place by the 5th of May, and they were indeed agreed. So we are constantly updating the constitution. And again, as referred to in paragraphs 2.3 of this report, in regard to the upcoming local government elections in a couple of weeks' time, a week or so time, should any further changes be recommended to the local choice functions within the council's constitution? In other words, when we have a new, when we have a look at the constitution, cabinet and council has an opportunity to have local choice functions placed with them rather than as a duty elsewhere. They can choose local choice functions within the constitutions. If that's the case, and the next administration chooses some new ones, the monitoring officer will present a further report for consideration as appropriate. So in other words, there could be some changes. If there are, there will be a further report. Following the approval of the draft multi-location policy, as we've considered earlier, all amendments, including those those agreed on the 7th of March, will be included within a revised constitution, which will then be circulated to all members and published on the council's website, together with the draft guide, if approved, obviously, by tonight, but no later than the 5th of May. So basically, this is what's been presented to you is the guide. I remind you of that. It's therefore reminded to council that all references, there's another issue in terms of this, is that all references to the use of the term executive for the council's decision-making body be amended to read cabinet within the council's constitution. There's always a bit of argument about what's the executive, what's the cabinet, and basically what this is saying is, because you have things like terms like the chief executive, etc., it is suggested that they should now read cabinet as opposed to the executive, because everybody knows what the cabinet is. So that's a recommendation, that all references should be now read cabinet within the council's constitution, and also that the report and the draft model constitution guide attached to the Appendix A to the report be approved for publication and uploading to the council's website. And in terms of recommendation 3, there was a word missed out at the end, and that was in fact guide. And recommendation 3 says that the monitoring officer, head of legal democratic services, be granted delegated authority in consultation with the leader to address any typographical errors and make any minor amendments, not to the council's constitution, but to the council's constitution guide, because that's what we're dealing with tonight. So I hope that's relatively clear. If it isn't, I apologise.
Thank you.
So can I formally move?
And formally second, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. And as there are no further comments forthcoming, we will move on to item 7, which I think the leader is going to take.
I will indeed. Madam Mayor, can I move items 7A to I en bloc, because they are to inform council of the use of the urgency decision procedure, which had been taken under Article 1414, so they are for noting. So can I move that 7A to I be noted, please.
And can I second them on block as well, Mayor?
Thank you very much. Councillor Penrose, you wish to comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to item I, in the water study in Lavernock, there has been strong objection to the Ysgolyderi development, inasmuch that it integrates and dovetails with the proposed housing development, which at the moment hasn't gone to planning for approval. Furthermore, requests have been made for Welsh Government to make decision on the development, and it's still awaiting response from Welsh governments. And this is, in my mind, quite unusual to be going for acceptance of a tender on something where there's no planning permission, and that does dovetail in with this housing development and may be treated as predetermination of planning applications, and residents of the ward and the ward member, or myself, I can't really speak for Councillor Marnie, but I believe so, are bitterly opposed to this. I'd like to have it on record, please. We strongly object.
Madam Mayor, can I just say that that decision has already been taken, and if it was a tender, then it was a tender presumably subject to planning condition anyway, and it does not fetter the planning process. I can assure you of that.
Lady Mayor, I do object to the leader talking across before I finish speaking.
I apologise. Thought you finished.
No, I hadn't.
Oh.
Basically, I want it noted in the minutes of the meeting, because I think it's really a case of the cart being put in front of the horse, and I accept that perhaps procedurally it's been decided, but that doesn't mean to say that the local residents and the local members at the moment, although I'm not restanding, won't be opposing when it goes for planning permission. And I don't share the leader's viewpoint that it may not be treated as predetermination, because it's bound to be, because some people are thinking that's going ahead, and yet the housing development and planning for the permission for the school have not been approved at this point in time. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penrose. Leader, would you wish to come back on this?
Not at all. There's for noting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marnie, you wish to comment?
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to echo some of Bob Penrose's comments there. And this is nothing against, obviously, the fantastic work that has been done by Ysgolyderi, and I'm sure will continue with it wherever the extension is built. But to say, I'm sure to just about anybody listening here, that does smack of predetermination of the whole site, basically. So it's quite most extraordinary, I would say. I appreciate it's going to be a comment for Neil Moore, maybe to answer to what he already had, as he just indicated. But yes, it certainly does. How can you put out a tender for something as part of a whole project that hasn't even come to planning?
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Burnett, do you wish to come in, or do you wish a clarification from the monitoring officer?
I was going to provide some clarification, Mayor, if I could. I am slightly confused. I don't know if this is deliberate or if this is just in error. This school, this proposal, is actually totally separate and independent to the proposed development that is on the table. There is a separate school that is part of that. I would have imagined that local members would be aware of that. This is actually a completely separate proposal, and as the leader said, this is part of this is just part of process. And if the school and the tender is purely for the design side of it, not for the build, and there is a planning process to go through, and the tender would be subject to planning application. But I am confused, or I am disappointed that local members are actually coming to this council with completely inaccurate information, and so I thought it best that I provided clarification at that point.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Monitoring officer, do you wish to clarify more?
All I was going to say is that, of course, this item is just for noting the use of the urgent decision procedure just so that we appreciate that that is the extent to which this item is before council tonight.
Thank you very much. Councillor Penrose, you wish to comment again?
Yes, I'd like to come back and say I think Councillor Burnett is the one that's confused. The land for this in application is owned by Welsh Government. Welsh Government are making the application for the housing development, and the dependency on that planning application does entail them making a decision whether or not to proceed with the sale of the land. So the two things are very interlinked, and this is why the planning application for the planning permission on the houses in the school have asked to be taken away from the Vale of Glamorgan, because there's an interface between Welsh Government and the Vale of Glamorgan Council on the purchase of this site. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you very much for your comment. Councillor Moore, do you wish to come back on this?
No, not really. It's for noting, and I think Councillor Burnett has set the scene correctly. So can we move on, please?
Thank you. Could you please lower your hand then, please?
My apologies. I forgot it was
Thank you. And Councillor Penrose, could you lower your hand? Thank you very much indeed. Right, as we move on to item 7, we've passed. So we go on to item 8 on the agenda, which is to receive questions to relevant members. First question is to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services, Transport, from Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Robertson, for your question about ash trees. To answer it, our officers are currently in the final stages of drafting a Vale-wide tree strategy that will feature an ash dieback action plan. It is envisaged that the strategy will be presented to Cabinet and the relative scrutiny committees for consideration and agreement later this year. As it stands, all ash trees within our parks, open spaces and adopted highway areas are monitored and their condition assessed at either 12-monthly or 6-monthly intervals using the Ash Dieback Health Classification Index system, and any remedial action, such as felling, is undertaken from the existing tree maintenance budgets. As Councillor Robertson is aware, the Council has declared a nature emergency, and to help mitigate the tree loss canopy reduction, we undertake replanting and rewilding utilising funding and labour from a range of sources such as Section 106 funding, external grants, asset renewal funding, user group involvement such as user group and tree dedication and sponsorship by individual residents. If diseased trees are reported or recorded on the public rights of way network or on other areas of private land where they could pose a risk to the public, we inform the landowner of their obligations to make the tree safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lady Mayor. Yes, thank you for that, Councillor King. Have you actually been able to make any estimates of what the costs of this, the impact of this disease is going to have, or how much it's going to cost the Vale of Glamorgan? It's in its fairly early stages at the moment, but there's a considerable concern that a very large number of ash trees are going to be affected. When they become infected, they obviously become very dangerous to traffic on highways and passers-by on footpaths. So how much is this effort going to cost, and how many arborists do we have actually working on this at the moment? Thank you.
I think, Councillor, with respect, that's about 4 questions, but I'll do my best to make a start on it. It'll probably be my successor if officers don't pick up any more detail for me. You're asking me, first of all, to estimate the length of 2 separate pieces of string. We have a fairly good idea of where our ash trees are, and that's intelligence that's an intelligence database that is being boosted almost on a daily basis. It's much more challenging is where there are other ash trees that have self-sown, and as I'm sure with your background, you'll know what I mean by the vigor of ash trees to sort of self-sow and pop up in all manner of places where you wouldn't perhaps want them. So I really can't answer that question. At the moment, we are managing just about from within our existing budgets. I've been to one conference on ash dieback. I know one of my fellow councillors been to one, and my officers are constantly reading information about the topic. And estimates seem to vary depending on who you talk with and what the latest information is. But it would seem that we could lose somewhere in excess of 90% of all our ash trees. Which is a staggering percentage. The thinking being that there will be sports, my word, not a technical one, that are resilient, and it will be from those that the species will be maintained. But nobody really knows, because we're still gathering information about the perishing disease and how climate change may or may not change that. So in answer to your question, there are two pieces of string. We've got a fairly good idea how long the one is, but it's definitely going to become more expensive as the trees deteriorate and get worse and therefore become dangerous. The other piece of string, we've yet to identify its length, and therefore I really can't begin to estimate. I don't imagine our officers could either. Thank you.
Many thanks, Councillor King.
Councillor Case. Question number 2 is from Councillor Kemp to the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kemp. Currently, there are 83 primary pupils and 11 nursery pupils attending South Point Primary School since the new building opened on the 2nd of March 2022. 16 children have joined the school for this academic year, 12 living in Roos, of which 11 have transferred from other primary schools, and 5 are new starters moving into the Vale of Glamorgan, with 4 actually living in Roos. The current pupils on roll at the school mean that there is a 60% surplus in capacity for primary pupils and a 54% surplus for nursery. There has therefore been an increase in pupils, and we would expect numbers to grow now the school has a visible presence in the area. The pupil projection, which informed the proposal, predicted that South Point Primary would have 94 pupils on roll on transfer to the new site, and that Roos Primary would have 349 pupils on roll.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Supplementary, Councillor Kemp.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It wasn't quite the answer I was looking for. I was looking for whether the figures that were given at the meeting I referred to were so accurate, or whether they had changed, and so what the change was for each of those years. So it's difficult to frame a supplementary question around an answer that wasn't given, but I'm concerned at the comparatively low numbers that were given on the last occasion, and perhaps the cabinet member could respond by saying when she anticipates the school will be working to capacity.
Well, I think that it's fair to say that the current number of pupils on roll for South Point and Roos would suggest that the full demand for school places anticipated has not yet occurred. That's mainly due to the housing development allocated to the northeast of the railway line of 354 units not coming forward as yet. However, there's still potential for it to come forward, and a large proportion of the site is available. The working out, I'm informed, is that the 354 houses would increase demand in the area by an estimated 98 places for primary age children, which would result in a predicted future surplus of approximately 14% in the next 5 years. And so, you know, it's not a perfect science. Parental choice comes into this, but you know, those are the figures we're currently working on.
Thank you very much.
Member.
Councillor Kemp, could you please lower your hand function? Thank you. And question number 3 is again from Councillor Kemp to the Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillor Kemp again. This is in relation to disposal of surplus land at Llancarvan. And since the Cabinet decision in March of this year to declare the Llancarvan primary school site surplus to requirements, officers have been undertaking a due diligence review of statutory procedures prior to disposal. It's hoped that this review process will conclude by the end of this month, and preparation for the marketing of the site will commence as soon as possible following the outcome of the due diligence review. And that's with the aim of disposing of the site at the earliest opportunity, whilst ensuring that any statutory processes identified as part of the due diligence review are followed.
Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cabinet Member, when you presented the report to Cabinet, you indicated that I think that initially when the school was sold, it would be offered to the Community Council, I think to the Public Service Board. Can you indicate whether that would, if that was done, whether that would affect the price? And secondly, I understand, but you know, I can't be absolutely certain of this, that there has already been an approach made to the council by a developer, and I think they are talking of a price for the land in excess of 1 million. Is that correct?
I must be honest, this is not. We are in a pre-election period, and I would not be having that level of conversation with officers. My understanding is, as I've said, that there is a due diligence review being undertaken currently, and that, as was stated in the Cabinet report, that whether it be the Health Board or the Community Council would be involved prior or contacted prior to any marketing. That will not come back across my desk, I would imagine, pre-election. So I can't answer that question for you, and I don't think it would be appropriate, even if I did know the answer, for me to give it in this environment.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Question number 5 is from Councillor Ewan Johnson, the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Mayor, I think it's number 4 first.
Oh, sorry.
So I can get myself organised.
Yeah, sorry, beg your pardon. I've skipped one. It's from Councillor Johnson, for Member Legal Planning and Services.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. This question is regarding the Ballydock incinerator. So, following the issue of an enforcement notice by the Council in September 2021, an appeal was lodged against the notice with Planning and Environmental Decision Wales, called PEDU, on 15th of October 2021. Since that appeal was lodged, Barry Biomass UK No. 2 Limited has also lodged an appeal against the Council's non-determination of an application which sought to discharge all outstanding planning conditions relating to the renewable energy facility 2015/0031/5/CD, and has requested that the 2 appeals are conjoined. In December 2021, the Council was advised by Welsh Government that the appeals lodged against the environmental notice had been called in. That is, the appeals are now to be determined by the Welsh Ministers, and not the appointed appeal inspector. In January 2022, the Council was advised by PEDU that the development subject of the development described in Schedule 1, Environmental Impact Assessment Regulations, and the Welsh Ministers have therefore issued a screening direction and directed the development that is the subject of an appeal is EIA development. PEDU subsequently wrote to the appellant regarding the decision to issue a screening direction, advised that the appeal must be accompanied by an environmental statement to be submitted by the 13th of April 2022. And the appellant advised PEDU that a formal environmental statement would be submitted to Welsh Ministers by that date. PEDU have not updated the council whether the information was received, and officers are seeking clarification on that point from PEDU. Alongside that, the council is awaiting confirmation from PEDU as to how the appeal will proceed and the relevant timescales for the submission of comments in response to the appeal. It is anticipated that this will occur following receipt of the environmental statement from the appellant. I will, in the short time left available, will ensure that any updates relating to the appeal are shared with members once an update is available. And I can assure members that, regardless of member involvement, that the Director of Planning and Legal will also update members as when required, as if they get any further information. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Johnson, are you indicating a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Williams for his answer there and clarification of what is taking place. I welcome the fact that we'll be updated if it takes place before the election, or whoever is in the position afterwards will hopefully be updated as well. Just for clarification, the Vale of Glamorgan no longer has decision-making responsibilities regarding any applications relating to that site.
Yes, I can confirm that. Basically, it's in the hands of PEDU and Welsh Ministers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, item 5, Councillor Johnson, question to the Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yes, this is in relation to Barry Market on Halton Road, and the council was disappointed to hear that the market operator had chosen to close the weekly market, but does understand the decision or the reasoning behind the decision. The number of stalls had reduced significantly over a period of time, and the market operators in recent years have been supported through what has been a very challenging economic period for businesses in town centres. A new invitation to tender is being drafted, which plans to widen the scope of opportunities in and around King Square for any operator. And the council hopes that some of the existing traders will be able to operate under a new operator, and will be keeping those that have requested informed of progress. The council continues to support all the town centres of the Vale of Glamorgan, and in particular Halton Road, with the Transforming Towns loan scheme, with over 1.3 million awarded to the council by Welsh Government, of which just over £1 million has been allocated to ongoing projects. A separate Transforming Town placemaking grant scheme has also provided over £500,000 of support for the various schemes in the town centre, including support for the replacement of the CCTV system and active travel improvements. In addition, the Barry Gateway scheme, which seeks to develop new health facilities and residential accommodation at the end of Halton Road and Broad Street, continues to be progressed with support from Welsh Government. So it's hoped that that will also help to drive footfall into the area. Further to the above, it's important to note that the council has indicatively been awarded over £14 million in funding via the UK Government Shared Prosperity Fund, which is being provided as a replacement for EU funding. Clear guidance hasn't yet been provided on how this fund, which is largely revenue, is intended to be accessed and used, although supporting the economy of our town centres will be a key aim of the funding. Finally, the council is in the process of developing a bid for the second round of the UK Government Levelling Up Fund, and this will include projects based around Barry Waterfront, including is there a problem? Including the development of a marina and the provision of new employment space and a new community facility for the Water Sports Trust. Linking the waterfront sustainably to the town centre will be a key aim of both the Levelling Up Fund and the Shared Prosperity Fund, and going forward, going forward, and that hopefully will also help support local traders. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. Now, the monitoring officer has indicated she wishes to come in on this.
Yes. Could you ask all members, unless they're speaking, if they could just check that their microphones are off, because I think there was some interference or some others speaking, and it was distracting, I think, for the deputy leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, councillors, could you just check that your microphones are switched off, please, when you're not using them? Thank you. Councillor Ian Johnson, you wish to come back on this?
Yes, supplementary, Mayor. Thank Councillor Burnett for the response she's given, and as a town centre ward member for Barry at present, I appreciate the wider system that she's discussing here. However, the question was geared specifically towards those businesses that will be missing out as a result of the market and the support that can be provided to those who may well, for no reason, no fault of their own, be without somewhere to trade for a period of months, having invested in their own kit and operations to be part of Barry Market. And I'm looking for assurances that our officers and the current cabinet member for this are considering how they can be best supported so that they don't go out of business themselves. It's no good having jam tomorrow if there's nothing at all today.
Thank you. I know that officers, or indeed myself, but I know that our officers in the economy team have been in contact with some of the traders and providing what support. Obviously, the establishment of a new market needs to have new tenders, etc. So, as I said during my response, that they will be kept informed where they wish to do so. We are not market operators, so to establish, we would not be establishing our own market, but we have supported people who have wanted to set up, say, the pop-up shop just off King Square, etc., where there were groups of small businesses that wanted to establish their own setup, was supported by Business in Focus. And I know that officers have been talking to the other sort of multiple unit shop that's been set up in the old Dorothy Perkins. So officers are very innovative, very supportive, and if any traders contact them, we will do our best to support them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. Our question number 6 is again from Councillor Johnson, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Regarding disabled parking bays, there are currently 48 applications on the waiting list for disabled persons parking places. The first 10 applications on this list are being processed this financial year 22-23 and have been waiting since January to June of about 2020 for their applications to be progressed. The approximate average waiting time for a bay to be installed is 2 years. However, there has been a large increase in applications in the last 2 years due to COVID-19 and the increase in demand for on-street parking with the increased number of residents now working from home. Therefore, it is anticipated this average waiting time will increase as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor King for his response there. I think he missed out the final part of the question about the longest waiting time for a property, but the supplementary question I wish to ask here is for what reason we have delays in implementing bays for people who have already been assessed and agreed that they are in need of a disabled parking bay. Is that a budgetary issue or is that a choice? Because I don't understand why people who've been assessed and agreed that they should have a disabled parking bay, are waiting a number of years for that to be implemented. Thank you, Cabinet Member.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I think I can make an attempt to answer that for you, Councillor Johnson. If social services deem a disabled parking bay is necessary, they can fund it. It's not a statutory obligation though for highways, and therefore we set aside, I think it's currently about 15k from our highway maintenance budget, and basically we do those at the top of the list who waited the longest, and we do them in a batch because that helps cut down the legal costs. And that's about all we can really afford, because frankly the strain upon the highways budget is exhausting, and diverting it to non-statutory stuff would be difficult. I am uncomfortable with how long it may be, and I'm certainly troubled that it could become longer. But unless there is more money from somewhere, it is actually quite an expensive process. Let's say we'll be doing about 10 any moment now. I think I've already signed off most of the paperwork, and that will cost 15,000.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Question number 7, again from Councillor Johnson to Cabinet Member of Housing and Building Services. I understand the leader is going to take this one.
Yes, if that's okay. Margaret has been suffering from COVID, unfortunately. She has this dreadful cough, as you can probably see, a coughing on it. So if you don't mind, Ian, I'll take it. But this is in relation to the support for refugees and asylum seekers. But as you know, I forwarded any updates in relation to Ukraine and anything else to all councillors on a regular basis. So anything that comes in, all members have a copy of the update. But what this also does is give me an opportunity to correct a statement made by our MP, Alan Keynes, in Parliament on the 15th, I think, of March, where he suggested that we had not been doing as much as we should have done, and that we only resulted in 2 families being accommodated over 4 years, which is quite incorrect. I know that Jane Hutt, who is the Minister for Social Justice, has written to Alan asking him if he would give him an update. I have written to him asking him if he would update his mistake in Parliament. It was fundamentally wrong, and I will give you some of the information that he seems not to know. But as yet, I haven't seen any change of comment from the MP. For your information, since 2016, the Vale Glamorgan has supported community sponsors to welcome 3 families in the area, in addition to the 18 families that has been directly accommodated and supported across both the former Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme and the UK Resettlement Scheme for Syrians and Afghan families. So we are doing as much as possible. In recent months, the Vale Glamorgan has further demonstrated its commitment to support the most vulnerable by cooperating with the Home Office to provide assistance to a number of Afghan families hosted in the county in the wake of the evacuation. In terms of the Ukraine situation, the council is working regionally with Cardiff Council to deliver the UK government's Homes for Ukraine scheme and the Welsh government's Super Sponsorship scheme. Refugee support workers are currently being recruited to provide wraparound support to hosts and families, which will include carrying out pre- and post-arrival checks and ensuring that guests have access to a wide range of key services, including health, employment and education. And until the new support workers are in post, existing staff from the shared regulatory services and housing have been carrying out visits to host and undertake the property checks. An operational group has also been established, by the way, within the council in order to plan for the arrivals and to ensure that processes are in place to cover aspects such as safeguarding, assessing education and childcare, financial matters, and establishing local support networks. And in addition, an arrival hub has been established at the airport to assist unexpected arrivals to access temporary accommodation and arrange onward travel to their intended destinations. I hope that does give you a flavour of what we are actually doing. As I say, we have had commitments in terms of those refugees, and as I said, we had three families, 18 families in addition, which in roughly is over 90 people, as far as I understand, in the region of well over 90 people. So I hope that gives you some assurance. But if I have any more updates, then I will be doing for as long as I'm here. Well, I will be passing on that information for everybody to be aware of.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Leader, for the detailed response there. I hope that we'll be able to continue providing the much level of support as we can for vulnerable people going forward. Does the in terms of funding for this going forward, is the Leader able to explain the current commitments of UK Government and Welsh Government to supporting local authorities in Wales to continue to do this work?
No, I can't give you the exact details. No, but the fundamental costs are being borne by UK Government and Welsh Government, because we still are having people coming in anyway. I can't give you an exact detail because it is based on the number of people coming in, where their requirements, their needs, whatever. But what I can assure you is that in terms of things like Ukraine, for example, which is a slightly different arrangement from anyone else, because they're refugees rather than asylum seekers. As far as I would like to address it, because I'm sure that many of them would want to go back to their homeland. But we are aware of 46 host families in the Vale who've been matched with Ukrainian families under the Homes for Ukraine scheme. And this is why I can't give you an answer on cost, to be honest, because some of those families have arrived in Vale already, but the majority are expected to arrive over the next fortnight, or subject to obtaining, and this is the bit, obtaining their visas and arranging travel. So there may be more Vale hosts interested in providing assistance, but we only become aware of them when they are matched to a Ukrainian family. The other thing is we don't know about how many people have arrived via a family visa scheme. So in other words, if you have somebody who's a family relative and you do it through the family scheme, arrangements will be made directly between the family members. So we don't know about those particularly, but we don't believe that there are many arrivals in the Vale, to be honest. And we also know that at this stage, we don't know at this stage how many people are arriving at the welcome centres outside the Vale as part of the Welsh Government super sponsor scheme. The centre, for example, in Llangrannog in Ceredigion is open, but as yet we don't have any data on their arrivals. But we're trying to do as much as possible. The Ukrainian and the Syrian and the Afghan schemes are still operating, but clearly the one that's we looked at most at the moment is the Ukrainian situation. So I hope that helps it. But as I said, if there's anything we can find, we will pass it on. But in terms of money, it depends on the number of people coming, where they are, and their requirements. So I really couldn't give it to you. I don't think anybody could at this stage, to be honest. So I hope that helps, and I hope Margaret's throat gets better because she's been coughing like mad all night.
Thank you, Leader. That ends the questions from the councillors. We go on to questions from members of the public now. We've got a question from Mrs. Blight for the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Lady Mayoress. Thank you, Mrs. Eva Blight, who asks about bird flu at the Knapp. Unfortunately, the Knapp Lake like many other areas across the country, has been affected by the incidence of avian influenza in the wild bird population. The nature of the wild bird population means that the usual prescriptive avian flu measures required in respect of kept birds cannot be enacted. However, as soon as the council was made aware of the first confirmed case of avian influenza at the Knapp Lake, the following measures were implemented. Signage was erected at various locations around Knapp Lake, informing members of the public that avian influenza had been confirmed and that the feeding of birds was prohibited. The signage provides details of how members of the public are to report any dead birds they might find through the Animal and Plant Health Agency helpline on 03459 335577. Road sweeping of the area around the lake was increased, and clearing away of faeces and the feed from the footpath. Council staff attending to remove dead birds have been adhering to approved health and safety risk assessments, including the wearing of appropriate PPE and the use of appropriate disinfectant to minimise any risk of contamination. The council has issued press statements and used social media to provide members of the public with information regarding the measures put in place. Park wardens have informed members of the public who have been observed feeding birds that this is now prohibited due to the confirmed cases of avian influenza. The local shops have been informed of the presence of avian influenza, that as a result, the feeding of birds has been prohibited, and therefore bird feed must not be sold to the public. The council has also sought advice and guidance from the Animal and Plant Health Agency as well as Public Health Wales, and has followed the guidance issued by these partner agencies in regard to protecting members of the public and council staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Second question again from Mrs. Blight, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Again, thank you, Lady Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Eva Blight. I've got my copy, and I hope that others have too, because it actually makes quite interesting reading to see the way that things develop from time to time over its various editions. I think we're now on about 7th edition since, well, 6th since I started driving, but there we go. A significant change to the highway code is that other road users, particularly drivers and motorcyclists, should now give way at junctions for pedestrian crossings or waiting to cross a road into which they are turning or exiting. Other new rules require other road users to give way to pedestrians waiting to cross a zebra crossing and to pedestrians and cyclists waiting to cross a parallel crossing, when previously they only had to give way if the pedestrian was already on the crossing. Overall, I consider that these new rules are a positive step forward to improving the safety of vulnerable road users such as pedestrians, cyclists and horse riders, especially given the emphasis and policies of both the Vale of Glamorgan and Welsh Government on encouraging active travel to reduce carbon emissions through Project Zero, as well as increasing well-being. I would not agree with the suggestion that the changes in the new highway code have highlighted how dangerous it is for pedestrians in Barry, as there is no correlation between the new rules and safety at individual junctions highlighted by the code. Only an intention to generally improve the safety of vulnerable road users across highway networks in England and Wales. The council takes the highway safety on its local road network extremely seriously. Whilst the Park Road, Romilly Park Road, Old Village Road Junction area comprises the confluence of several roads and is therefore of significant width, this alone does not on its own make junctions unsafe. The junction has good visibility in all directions, both to oncoming traffic and to pedestrians in the road, and there is no known record of previous incidents or collisions which would suggest this junction area is not safe. And as mentioned above, the new changes in hierarchy within the highway code can only improve safety for pedestrians when crossing any road junction. Should pedestrians feel concerned about crossing this area, then there is a good quality uninterrupted footpath on the opposite side of the road that can be used as an alternative to assist in safely accessing various destinations along the road. Therefore, I do not see the need to undertake a safety audit of this location at this time. I am pleased to advise you that the Council is progressing many active travel initiatives throughout the Vale, and I would encourage residents in all areas to access the information available on active travel on the Vale's website and contribute to the ongoing discussions and consultations so that good quality and effective active travel routes can be developed for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 3 from the Member of the Public is again from Mr. Blight, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you again. This question is asking about the watchtower at the Knapp. As the building is now privately owned, the responsibility for maintenance and repair rests with the owner. The most recent Buildings at Risk survey undertaken by CADU on behalf of Welsh Government in 2016 indicated the watchtower was identified as a medium priority building. We are now overdue the updated survey, mostly due to COVID, and this is expected to happen late in 2023. Nevertheless, I've been advised the Planning Department will identify the owner and remind them of their responsibility with regard to the listed status of this building.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Question 4 from Member of the Public is from Mr. Reynolds to Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Donald Reynolds. He's asking about Barry's rich history. The council has recently undertaken a consultation regarding active travel routes, which included Barry Docks, and this recognised the need for a suitable route linking the docks to the wider waterfront and the town. The council has also commissioned economic and spatial master planning work for Barry as part of its bid for funding from the UK government as part of the Levelling Up agenda. This work is not yet complete, but is already recognising the importance of linking the waterfront to the rest of Barry and the opportunity that exists to improve active travel links around the docks. The council will be working with both Welsh and UK governments to identify possible funding streams to help deliver active and sustainable travel improvements around the waterfront, the docks, and to improve links to the town centre and wider Barry. Irrespective of all this, you will be aware that as part of the regeneration of the waterfront area, the council has already delivered improvements in the linkages from the former docks area to the town centre and to High Street by virtue of additional and improved pedestrian and vehicular connections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Question 5 is from Dr. Alexander Barrett to Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Barrett. This is in relation to Llancarvan Primary School. The original Llancarvan Primary School had a capacity of 126 pupils and did not include nursery provision. The replacement school of South Point Primary School has a capacity of 210 pupils and 48 part-time nursery pupils. Currently, there are 83 primary pupils and 11 nursery pupils attending South Point Primary School since the new building opened on 2nd of March this year. And 16 children have joined the school for this academic year, 12 living in roofs, of which 11 have transferred from other primary schools, and 5 are new starters moving into the Vale of Glamorgan, with 4 of those living in roofs. The current pupils on roll at the school means that there is a 60% surplus in capacity for primary pupils and a 54% surplus for nursery. There's therefore been an increase in pupils, and we would expect numbers to grow now the school has a visible presence in the area. The pupil projection, which informed the proposal, predicted that South Point Primary would have 94 pupils on roll on transfer to the new site, and Roos Primary would have 349 pupils on roll, which excluded the housing development. Based on the current number of pupils on roll for South Point and Roos, the full demand for school places anticipated by 2021-22 has not yet occurred. This is mainly due to housing development allocated to the northeast of the railway line of 354 units not coming forward. There is, however, potential for it to come forward as a large portion of the site is still viable. the 354 houses would increase demand in the area by an estimated 98 places for primary children, and this would result in a predicted future surplus of 14% at South Point Primary School in the next 5-year period. The last residential units under phase 1 of the development were completed in 21-22, which means that the full cohort of potential pupils will not as yet be reflected in admissions. The projections cannot account for the specific age of pupils arising from the development, and generally it's expected that there will be an increased uptake of school admissions year on year following the completion of the development, together with the positive impact of opening a new school. It is relevant to note that the completion of the residential developments didn't align with the completion of the new school, which has impacted upon the surplus within South Point Primary School. Of the pupils living in the development, 5 attend South Point, 36 attend Roos Primary, 15 attend Welsh medium or denominational schools, and 19 attend other English medium schools outside the Roos area. The pupils which attend Roos Primary and other English medium schools could potentially transfer to new school now it's fully operational in future. However, this is obviously a matter for parental preference. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. The next question, again from Dr. Barrett, is for Cabinet Member for Education Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Barrett. This is about the disposal of the school site. So in some ways it's worth comparing the answer that I previously gave to Councillor Kemp. Since the Cabinet decision to declare the site surplus to requirements, the Council has been undertaking a due diligence review of any statutory procedures it's required to consider prior to disposal. It's hoped that this review process will conclude by the end of April 2022, so shortly. The Council aims to dispose of the site at the earliest opportunity in accordance with recommendations 3 to 5 endorsed on the 14th of March Cabinet meeting. Any statutory processes identified and undertake any statutory processes identified as part of the due diligence review. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Question 7 is from Mrs. Victoria Roberts, to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. The question is quite simple, really. It's in relation to the former NAP pool site, and we're asked, can we confirm that the Council, if the land on the site of the former NAP pool is legally owned and or controlled by the Vale Glamorgan Council? The very simple answer is yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Leader. Question number 8 is from Mrs. Pascalis, to the Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess this leads on from the previous one. It's in relation to youth disruption, but it's talking about how can the Council tackle youth disruption at the NAP, in particular speeding and unlicensed vehicles. So the only answer I can give to this, Mayor, is the Council has recently reviewed any reports of antisocial behaviour at the NAP. If there had been any such reports, then they would have been submitted to the Council and the South Wales Police. However, there appears to have been very limited instances reported to either agency, so that's either the Council or the Police, in relation to youth annoyance and vehicle annoyance in the past 6 months. Without such reports, it is difficult to prioritise resources to tackle this issue. But I have to finally say is despite the lack of any reports, and in order to raise this potential issue within the community, particularly the Council's community safety team will arrange to hand deliver how to report antisocial behaviour leaflets to residents in the vicinity so that they have the information they need to report via 101 or by emailing South Wales Police 101@southwalespolice.uk. So basically, the answer to that is that we have not had the number of incidents that has been suggested. But if there are, please report them, because that will obviously prioritise resources should they occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question number 9 is from Dr. Barrett to Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor and Dr. Barrett. This question's in relation to funding for South Point Primary School. And in response, I can say the development of South Point Primary School under the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme, which was the 21st Century Schools programme, was subject to a business justification case. The business case considered school organisation issues, which included an assessment of predicted pupil demand and surplus capacity under the strategic case as part of the case for change for the project. The business case was submitted in May 2020 and included an updated analysis of the demand and surplus considerations, which were published under the statutory process to approve the school reorganisation proposals in 2018-19. It concluded that transferring the school to larger accommodation and creating a new catchment area with sustainable numbers would enable the school to build on existing progress while catering for a greater school population. An increase in pupil numbers would also provide additional revenue for Llancarvan Primary School. If the school was to remain on its existing site, it is likely pupil numbers would continue to decline. And as school funding is primarily based on the number of pupils on roll, the school's budget would have been negatively affected. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. And the final question again from Dr. Barrett is again from the Member of Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Barrett. This is about surplus places at South Point Primary School. Following the opening of the school, Welsh Government has been informed of the current number on roll at South Point Primary School. Additionally, as an admissions authority, the Council submits its school place data to Welsh Government on an annual basis as part of their data collection exercise, which includes and indicates the level of surplus capacity at schools. These submissions are inspected by Welsh Government and discussions take place if surplus capacity is considered to be an issue. As happens in any project that we undertake, the Council will undertake a full review of the outcomes of the project in due course, and this will include a lessons learned exercise which will review the methodology used to predict pupil places. The results of this review will be shared with the Council's partners, and that includes Welsh Government and the contractor who constructed the school. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. And that brings us to the end of the questions. In fact, brings us to the end of the meeting. I have no matters declared urgent and nothing under part 2. So I just say wish you all a very good night. For those of you who are not standing for re-election, have a well-deserved rest and think of the rest of us when we're out canvassing and what have you, hopefully to get back on again next year. All the best to everyone and thank you very much. Good night now.
Good night.
Good night.